welcome back to my channel. I am so glad that you are back. So welcome if you are new here, and welcome back if you've been around for a while. So as you can see, we are getting back into recap and review, and this time we're recapping and reviewing the Real Housewives of Orange County. Now, I had shared in my previous video that I dropped earlier today. If you haven't gotten a chance to see that, I hope you will take some time to do that. That was the Real Housewives of New Jersey recap and review of the season finale. Make sure you see that one because there was a lot going on in that finale, right? But in that video, I did share that I wanted to go ahead and drop my episode 2, 3, and 4 reviews for the Real Housewives of Orange County. And so since it's Wednesday today and Thursday being tomorrow, when the next episode will drop, the next new one, I want to try to get these out to you guys so we can get all ready for the next one, right? For getting ourselves up to date, if you will. So I appreciate you hanging in there with me as I go through each one of these. So I really want to make sure I get this information out, get your thoughts, share my thoughts, because it's just a lot going on. And as you can see, we are definitely just really getting in there with Real Housewives of Orange County. So if you are watching it, let me know what your thoughts are thus far, and what your thoughts are about episode 2, right? So let's go ahead and get into that for sure. And let's get a little bit of a good look-see, because we've got a lot going on in the beginning. I mean, they just go right on in there, don't they? All right. So with episode 2, we are starting back off at the point that's just after that aftermath conversation between Alexis and Shannon outside. Now, if you remember, some points to that was basically that was a confrontational, right? Because Alexis is now dating John Jansen, that is, which is Shannon's ex-boyfriend of several years. And so there was bound to be a moment where they needed to kind of just rip the situation for what it was and get there and talk about the elephant in the room, if you will. Except we didn't realize the elephant in the room included another lawsuit conversation. And that lawsuit was the one that Jim Bellino had apparently had placed on Shannon and Tamara some years ago for defamation. That case is since closed. I shared that in my last recap and review for episode 1, where it was brought back into the fold again. We know that Shannon had shared that she had to pay $300,000 towards that settlement, and I believe Tamara had $500,000 towards that settlement. So it was a hefty situation, and Shannon is not trying to hear anything about it. She is so upset, and look, at the end of the day, anyone with the name Bellino doesn't get a pass for her. So as we saw, the aftermath of that consists of everybody kind of just scrambling around to see where to go to next and who to talk to at this party. Because remember, we're still at Heather's New Year, New Me, New Year's Eve brunch. And it's supposed to be all great tidings, but right now it's just a lot of revelations going on. So once the ladies scattered from looking out the window and seeing what was going on outside, they actually come inside, they being Shannon and Alexis. Alexis, of course, I believe was the first one to storm off. And so she's in a huff, walks in, and of course, everybody kind of tries to gravitate to her, find out what's going on. And, Heather, in the meantime, does go up and speak to both Alexis, and I think Tamara was there as well. They kind of just get an idea of what's happening. Alexis says, look, I just needed to compose myself because she was just getting so worked up about what was happening. She shares that all Shannon wanted to do while she was outside was bring up that lawsuit that she had with Jim Bellino, that, of course, she has shared, Alexis did, that she didn't know anything about it. And if you remember, Shannon had shared, oh yeah, you do, because you're the one that did that cease and desist. So you obviously knew about it. So, and at the time also, ironically, Shannon was dating John. So that was interesting, right? So at this point, Heather does come over as well and apologizes and excuses herself from that group, being Alexis and Tamara, to walk over and check on Shannon because, of course, this is her party. She wants to make sure everybody's okay. She knows that this was not an easy situation for Shannon to come into. She's actually really thankful that Shannon did come, and she does speak about that a little bit later, and we'll cover that later on in this recap and review. So so at this point, Shannon, I think, is holding her own, to be honest with you. I think she's doing really well considering the circumstances. I don't know too many people who to sit there and go to a party with their ex and their ex's new boo thing, who is really just on a mission to confront Shannon and kind of almost like fight his battles with her on screen because he's maybe not able to or too scared to, or I don't know what the issue is there. But, she's coming in with all, roads ablazing, and it's just really unfortunate that this is going on. And my heart really goes out to Shannon this whole entire episode, quite frankly. So Heather does go on over and she wants to see if Shannon's good. Shannon says, I'm okay. She also shares that, hey, look, anyone with the last name Bellino is not really quite my favorite person. And again, as I shared about those settlement amounts, that's really up on the primary situation for Shannon at this point. So at this point we move on to back to Tamara and Alexis speaking, where Tamara says, I can understand how Shannon feels, like this is probably awkward for you guys being here or you being here. And of course Alexis corpse back, well, this is awkward for me, dealing and seeing John's ex. Now here's my thing about this. Alexis chose to be at this party, right? Alexis chose to be on the show. Shannon was already on the show. Alexis' time had come and went. There really was no reason that she had to be on the show. So to say, this must be difficult for me too, and this is so hard for me too, when you've been guns a-blazing towards Shannon about this situation, just doesn't fall very, compassionate to me. I just kind of feel like, Alexis really just needs to kind of cool her jets some, because at the end of the day, this is awkward, and I don't think Alexis would feel any different. As a matter of fact, I don't even know if she would have reacted better than what Shannon has done. And Shannon has done an absolute wonderful job. We've all seen Shannon over the years. We all know how Shannon can get worked up into things that can take place with Shannon. And I love Shannon, but sometimes she can get real worked up about things. And I'm just saying, I'm impressed with the way that she is handling things right now. So of course, she just basically lets her know, look, this can't be easy for me. So then we corp into the confessional where Tamara is basically saying, look, I know me and Shannon are in a bad place right now, but I'm always going to care about her. I'm always going to want to see, the best for her. So, and of course, she also is, at times it says, hey, look, if Shannon ever really needed me, I would be there for her, right? Then we kind of quip over to a text messaging correspondence between Shannon and Shannon and Tamara. And Tamara's the one sharing it, basically that, she does feel bad about what's going on. She knows that overall must be really feeling it. And at this point, she says when she started seeing the pictures posted on Instagram with Alexis and John, that she basically had reached out. And we did get to see the text message. If you watched the episode, you would have recalled that probably. But she does show us, basically, where Tamara's saying, hey, look, I saw the pictures. I was thinking about you. I'm hoping that you're doing okay. And, Shannon had responded back, I'm doing fine. I'm looking forward to spending the holidays with my girls. Thank you for basically checking on me. And that was the end of the conversation. Now, Shannon, going to her confessional, basically chimes in that actually how this went down was that there was a bunch of pictures that were put out there for Alexis and John, and Tara was actually liking those pictures and then putting clap emojis on it. And so of course Shannon sees this and responds to her like, WTF, what is going on here? And the response she says she got back from Tara was, grow up. So, there's that. So obviously there's a bit of an issue on who's actually telling what and what really took place. And I don't think everybody's completely on the same page as to what really took place here. So yeah, it's crazy. It was just crazy. So then we move to Alexis, Heather, and Tamara, and where Alexis states to Heather she wanted to allow for the party to continue in a lovely way, and Heather responds back very firmly, yes, it's going to, because Heather is not going to allow her parties to be in disarray. That's just not going to happen. She'll shut it down first before that happens. If you recall a party that I think she did 2 seasons ago where she had to do just that. So yeah, she doesn't play around with that. When she does her setups and everything, it's going to go according to plan. And if you have an issue with it, then you know you're going to have to go, or the party's going to shut down. And it's kind of one of those moments you don't have to go home, but you have to get the heck out of here. So then we move on to the wishing well, or the wishing wall, excuse me, where Emily, who is just quite the comedian this season, I have to say, I'm really loving Emily this season, quite frankly. But she and Jen and Katie are at this table, still writing the wishes for people, which is a great idea, by the way. And Jen asks if Emily was still making the wishes, and Emily's, of course, spiritedly said, "Oh yeah, I'm doing that," and it kind of felt like a heck yeah in her conversation. And then Emily then says, basically, "Yeah, I'm wishing a house for you," and and then Jen laughs and says, "Yeah, a house, a car, a job," because as you know, Jen is still dealing with a situation that she was evicted from her home, the one that Gina apparently had helped her get into. And we find out a little bit more about why Gina is so upset about the situation and what this, in Gina's eyes, cost her because of helping Jen and it getting to a point where she got evicted because she was not able to pay her rent. As you recall, that Jen, her husband, her ex-husband or estranged husband, was actually carrying a portion of, like, as she says, the lion's share of the rent, and she was doing a portion of it. And if she finds in a text message exchange between the homeowner and her ex-husband that basically he wasn't paying his portion at this time, and so all she had was the amount she had but could not carry the rest of it. So there ensued her having to, remove herself from the house. And so that was a really embarrassing situation. And I kind of gather that Laguna Beach and that whole Newport News and all that area is probably a very small town, feel. And so everything gets around, news gets around. It doesn't take much for, reputations to start to get, marred somewhat. And so Gina, as we see it along with the episode as it goes on, how very serious she is about, no longer getting herself put into this position because she's so passionate about her new career. So, of course, at this point, Katie asked Jen if she was moving, because she's, still new to the group, right? This is the first time that everybody's really getting to meet her for the most part. And she says, yeah, she is. She also shares that Gina had actually helped her, with getting into the current house that she was in, that she is now, gotten evicted from. Jen shares in a confessional that she was scared to tell her children about what was going on. She's like, basically, you either have option A, which is to move in with Ryan, the boyfriend, or option B. Well, there was no option B. So at this point, she's stuck, right? And she needed to make a move fast. So then we quip within the flashback of the confessional where she's actually talking to her children, at least 3 of the 5, I believe. And, they seem like really lovely children. And, they ask her, how long do you think we're going to be here? And she says, well, hopefully for forever, right? Because we know that there's some air about Ryan possibly, and Jennifer getting married, right? Or getting engaged and getting to that point. So she says, hopefully forever. And they said, okay, because, we really just don't want to have to move anymore. And, that broke her heart. It would break my heart, to be in that kind of situation. I think most people could quite understand it. Even if you don't agree with maybe some things that she's doing, we don't still know all of what's being done and all that is happening and all that she's having to go through this process, what she is or isn't doing. We only know what's being shown and what's talked about, right? There are behind the scenes things, actions that might be being taken. We just don't know all of those things at this point. And that does get a little bit of a reprieve from Eddie later on in the episode, and we'll cover that too. As far as his feelings, Tamara's husband, his feelings about Jen and her situation, as far as, how hard she really is working or not working, right? Because that's obviously a question. It's in that moment that, of course, we get that heartfelt flashback, and, Jen's just kind of like, I'm just doing the best that I can at this point. And of course, Jen is extremely tearful within that flashback of the situation. Now, back into real time at the party, she does share that she is grateful that the kids are on board with the decision of them moving with Ryan, because it seems like Ryan gets along really well with all the kids, right? There doesn't seem to be any issues there. And they seem to be well adjusted considering all of the upheaval they've had to deal with Jen's estrangement from her husband, which is their father. So, and I believe she was married to him for quite some years. And it seems like it was just one of those things that kind of fell out of love. of, or more or less she did. And, her ex-husband was not too thrilled about the situation. We also know that her ex-husband also worked for her family, her mother and father, her father's business. So that's an added extra amount of stress, and he no longer works for the family business. So therein lies more of the buffoonery, if you will, of that situation. So she's clearly not able to rely on him for that. And plus, one of the things that's holding up their divorce is that it seems to be taking him quite some time. And her ex-husband's name is Will, or soon to be ex-husband's name is Will. It's taking Will quite some time to get his financials to the court, so that way they can get that process and get an idea of what a judgment will be for Jen, so they can move on. So at this point, it's just been going on for quite some time. Now, the one thing about Katie, which I think was really kind of Katie, she reassures Jen that, hey, look, you're doing the best that you can. You're doing the right thing for you and your kids. You're getting yourself, moved into a situation. And at the end of the day, that's the best that you can do. Maybe you should look at this as a fresh start and not as anything else more than that. And Jen, pretty much says, yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. Jen's trying so hard to stay as positive as she can in this situation, because it really is just unfortunate that this is going on. Then we move to Heather, Gina, and Tamara conversating. Gina shares that there is a lot going on, and that she's also found out about Jen moving on Instagram. So again, Heather, Gina, and Tamara are now talking about the situation at the party. You imagine there's not that much space in between these ladies and their conversational areas. So you think that some of these things will go over to the other table, right? But Jen, to me, seems to be very open, transparent to this degree, and doesn't even, I know she's embarrassed, but she doesn't seem to act like she's embarrassed in the sense that, I guess she's just not hiding it. It is what it is. It's messy. It doesn't look good, but she's going to put it out there because that's just what she needs to do. But Gina, she's really hell-bent about this situation. She's really upset about this situation because, again, she put her name on the line for Jen to get into this house with the individual, and, for Jen to just, for however long it was, break the contract, for all intents and purposes, not being able to pay the rent. And she's just upset about that. And plus, one of the issues is, well, how did Gina come about to find that information? Well, Gina says that she found out by seeing it on Instagram. Jen is posting on Instagram about their moving, and showing that and to whoever followers are. And of course that irritates Gina because Gina's like, I didn't even know that was happening. And maybe I think there was some point, if she had talked to her ahead of time, then it would give Gina an opportunity to, not be blindsided, for one, and maybe you can try to help some kind of way that would not leave Gina kind of hanging out there on the hook. And so that's kind of where we go into that situation. So she's really upset about that, of course. They also, this is another point of contention when it comes to this situation. Not only did she just put her name on the line for it, apparently Heather says that Emily had shared that Jen didn't have to have a credit check. So it's like, whoa. I'm thinking at this point, she just referred her. I didn't know there was no credit check at the time, because maybe the credit check at the time, I don't know, maybe would have shown that it was good to go, but we didn't know that. So that becomes a point of, no, she didn't even do a credit check. So, oh, wow. Because it's not even like you could even seen if the financials looked right to be able to do what she was doing, no matter what her arrangement was, because that wouldn't have mattered. But you didn't even know if there was an arrangement there. And I just find that so interesting. I know sometimes, you do a wonderful thing, try to help out a friend, but let's face it, how long has Jen and Emma or Gina really known each other? Jen just got on the show. This is like Jen's second season. Okay. And it's not like Gina and Jen were like fast friends. At the end of the day, part of the storyline for Jen, and she got beat up on it a lot last season, was the fact that she cheated on her estranged husband. And we all know that Gina was famously cheated on her ex-husband, and she did not take that well, right? She was really upset. She was hurt, and there was a lot going on about that. And, and her kind of just projecting her feelings about that onto Jen in her first season. It got to a point where she had to come back and tell Jen, look, I need to apologize to you because I need to have a fresh start with you. And maybe the things that I am dealing with has more to do about my experience and not with you. But, she just kind of was meshing the two things together, and it just was really not a pleasant interaction between the two of those ladies. Even Heather had told, Gina that, hey, if you're talking to Travis about this, this is going to probably be a problem. You might want to find a way to get that together. Stop, why are you whining about your ex-husband? Y'all been divorced for years now at this point. And, there was some issues, some legal issues that took place that put Gina, in a really precarious situation when it came to her ex-husband. So why is this now like kind of rubbing up, So it's almost like Jen just triggered Gina. So I personally would not have felt that Gina would have looked at Jen as someone close enough to put her new career on the line by not doing a credit check, by not doing the primary things that you need to do to ensure the person could even be in the house. So that does call into Gina's question. It calls her, calls into her way of thinking and her judgment into question. And so I think that obviously is what is nagging Gina at the most, right? Because now people may look at her as like, oh, we can't take her seriously. Look, she over here getting people in houses, and not to say this has never happened to somebody, but at the same time, when it happens to you, sometimes you feel that sting so much more. And of course, one of the things that Gina talks about also periodically, and we get a little bit more focused as this episode goes on, as that a deal that she could have made in the future, a cash offer type deal, has now been compromised and no longer even available to her because of this situation. Because of course, the individual who owned the home that that Jen was renting, has their own, a realtor representation there for. So there's two realtors that, can work together for future projects or future things. And now that's, pretty much a lost opportunity there. And again, I feel like Laguna Beach and that whole arena probably is kind of small. So, you don't want to burn your bridges, right? So of course, Gina continues to harp on all of these things because she is just really so upset and incensed by the fact that, she was burned. That's what she feels. She was simply burned. So yeah, at the end of the day, like Gina says, she would not have put someone in a home that couldn't have paid the rent. Simple as that. And she doesn't want that to be something that's going around. Like, I'm just putting people into homes that they can't even afford. It's not a good look. It's not a good look. And it's not something I want to keep my situation, where I am potentially putting my job on the line, right? So then we go back to the wish table again, where the individuals identify 3 wishes. And Shannon, at this point, quirks that she should do a wish for Alexis, and the wish being, hey, I wish you luck on the relationship with you and John, because basically you're going to need it. Then the focus is back on Alexis and Jen. So now we're doing a bit of a back and forth right through the scene. And Jen shares that she understands how Alexis is feeling, because now Jen has moved away from the table from Katie and Emily and is now, kind of linked up with Alexis just a few feet over. And she says, look, I get how you're feeling. And I understand because, she had to spend so much of last season, her first season, defending her man, Ryan. And boy, did she ever, right? If you watched last season, you would have seen that. I mean, Jen was like raked over the coals for everything. And at this point, Alexis like, look, it is not about if I will defend or will I defend. I will defend, because at the end of the day, John broke up with her. Like I said, Alexis is on fire. She really just is. She did not come to play. We'll just say that. Now, of course, she's speaking loud enough because, like I said, there's not many feet away between the ladies, right? But she's speaking loud enough for Shannon to hear. And of course, Shannon basically says, you could lower your voice. And Shannon says that, you're quite loud. And of course, Alexis sharply looks at her and says, oh, I'm being too loud. Oh, look, I just got scolded by someone old enough to be my mother. And that was a bit unnecessary, but here it is. And at the same time, Alexis says, look, I am not going to be silent. And also she flipped to her confessional where she says, look, I'm not going to be squelched. My voice will not be squelched. And we do get a flashback, of course, of her time where she was on, I think 2 times before, with her ex-husband, Jim Bellino. And Jim, he's a very A-type individual. He was really the leader and the man of the house. He was to lead everybody in the situation. Everyone else was a duckling and they were to listen to him. And that was pretty much how it went. I mean, it was a whole thing. If you were watching Real Housewives of Orange County back in that time frame, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But he was definitely the man of the relationship. He was the leader of the relationship, right? And so she was to fall in suit and fall in line. And by that, it made her definitely feel like her voice was not heard. She didn't have a voice in her relationship, not one to the point that she needed to have. And as you can see, they are no longer married and have not been for quite some time. So at this point, she's saying, look, I am not ever going to get in that position again. And you know what? She also is really interested in these little snarky comments, right? She says, hey, Alexis is really on one at this point, but that storm, because of course, get it, see what she did. If she wants to find another storm somewhere, she better go find another tornado, period. That's it. That's point blank. She's not dealing with her. Now we go back to Jen and now Gina, where she asked Gina to see if they could meet up. Now, it's been somewhat like Gina has been kind of avoiding Jen a bit because, it's that elephant in the room kind of thing, right? And Gina, of course, is not going to be responsible for ruining another party for Heather, as we do get a flashback in that scene as well, where, that's exactly what closed down the 2 seasons ago party that Heather had, and that was because there was a rumor or some kind of communication about someone who had gotten plastic surgery from Heather's husband, who I cannot remember his name at the moment. Whatever was said was not true. I think there might have been possibly a lawsuit or some kind of civil suit that was running around there, and it got dropped, and it was just a hot mess. But the fact that you brought this up into this beautiful forum, it just did not sit well with Heather, and Heather had enough. And so, basically you can just off the messenger, because of course, she's like, don't pow the messenger. I'm just trying to tell you what I heard. Because, Gina and Heather had a really close relationship, and Heather was not having none of it. And she did end up, if I'm not mistaken, that was the party that she'd actually shut down, told y'all to get out of here. I don't know how many thousands of dollars of shrimp that she had gotten rid of. There was whatever that meal was, it was a lot, and she was done. And everybody left. That's what it was. She said, we're not doing that. And I believe that was also Heather's first season back after a long stretch. So she was not, you're not about to embarrass me first scene in my home. Not happening, right? So that's basically what ends up happening. Gina and Jen decided, they will need to sit down and have a talk about things, because, Jen thinks that something's wrong. She doesn't really understand what's wrong, and she just want to get to the bottom of it. And of course, Gina is open to that. So they do make a plan to do that. Now we move into the sit-down portion of the party, the faded party anyways, which is decorated beautifully. The centerpieces, the whole landscaping of the table is just absolutely gorgeous. Now, the little food that was coming out at the beginning, the little hors d'oeuvres or appetizers or whatever it was, of course, Gina's looking at that and talking to Katie at the table. It's like, why is everything like being brought here without bread? It was really cute moment. But she was really concerned about being hungry. I don't know if that's how it was at the end of the party, but that's how she felt at that moment. Now, Alexis, as she's coming over and everybody's coming over to get themselves seated, she says, look, I don't want to sit next to the cat lady, which is interesting that she calls her a cat lady, because at the end of the day, I don't know if that's a kind of a comment to the plastic surgery situation that was going on, or what that had to do, because, she's got a dog. So I don't know. But she ends up not sitting next to Shannon. She's a little bit over, and everything's fine. Shannon's actually sitting next to Emily, and Alexis ends up sitting next to Tamara. So, that's kind of how the basis is going there. And Gina questions why everything is being served, of course, with bread. Heather also then at this point starts the welcome. It's a bit of an impromptu toast that she does, basically welcome everybody, thanking everybody for coming to the new year, new me, fresh start brunch, that she hopes everybody has a good time. I would say that, most people were probably having a good time, but Shannon probably was not one of them. But I tell you what, Shannon was a trooper. She was the hero of the show. MVP for sure of episode 2. Probably MVP from what I can see at this point of the season. But, we've got so many more episodes to go before we can make that whole assumption at this point. But she's doing good. She's doing good. So now, of course, Heather is hoping everyone is enjoying themselves. Let's see. She makes sure everybody gets gets set up. And she also talks about... She introduces a question booth or whatever. If you ever watch The View, they actually do this around the Christmas time, which is really cool. They put a bunch of money in there, and then they get a contestant or an audience member to come in, and they have like 30 seconds to collect as much money as they can, and then whatever they come out of the booth with that they have is what they keep. So it's kind of looks like one of those things, but instead of money, it's actually little questions, because a lot of that information, that comes from the wishing wall is kind of putting place into this booth, which I think is a really cool idea, by the way. Of course, people tease about the fact that it looks like one of those money booths. And Jen definitely wants to be known that I need to have a lot of money. So maybe I need enough for some rent. And yeah, she could afford to put a lot of money in there. Now, Emily in her confessional corpse about, yeah, she could use money for rent, money for car. There's a lot of debt out there. And then, of course, Heather says, look, there's not enough money in that booth. If there was money, there would not be enough to cover her rent. So there you go. So now Alexis is first to step up. She's the first one to go into that booth, and she grabs a wish. Now, I guess it's got a blower kind of thing, and then they kind of go in, grab that wish that's blowing around, and she comes out. And of course, the funny thing about hers is, well, what do you expect to have for a friendship for 2024? Like, really? It's almost like someone just kind of handed, this is the question we want you to have and we want you to do, because what are the odds, the chances that would be the question? Like, come on, but we'll go along with it. All right. So basically she says, you know what? I would like me and Shannon to, be amicable, to kind of be friends, to kind of get a fresh start, if you will. Yeah, she says that she hopes Shannon and her could become friends, which Emily, when her fun self this season, basically looks at Shannon and says, oh, and puts Shannon on the spot. She goes, what do you think about that? And so Shannon is like, hey, okay, well, yeah, I appreciate that. What else is she going to say? But she did a good job. She really did. And Emily was, she wasn't cool for that, but it was funny. Now, in the confessional, Alexis does share that she wants to be amicable in this friendship group. She wants to be Christian-like. She wants to act like one by spreading love instead of what she is spreading. Of course, Shannon in her confessional is not buying it one iota. She doesn't know, or well, really, she doesn't think that acting is really her forte, and she does not see a friendship between those two. And I would have to agree. I don't see one either. Also, Tamara thought she would tell Alexis upon Alexis sitting down after she said the whole, thing at front of the table and all the ladies there, that well, maybe a good start would be if you stop sleeping with her ex-boyfriend. And everybody's laughing and and of course, which chimed in as well. Hey, you only said, and I think it was Katie that said that. Well, she's only asked or made the statement that everybody was thinking, right? Because that would be one good way, maybe us having some kind of situation. So yeah, that was just really, really crazy, right? Now, of course, it's Tamara's time to go into the booth, and she pulls out a question, and her question ends up being, what would you like to see basically not happen in 2024? And Tamara quirks back, well, I would love to not be talked about behind my back by my friends. And she sits down, right, or gets ready to go sit down. Of course, Shannon looks at Emily. She goes, oh, that jab was for me. And Emily says to her at the table, hey, are you talking about her behind her back? Shannon says, no. And under her breath, she says, Tamara just needs to calm down. So yeah. Now Heather's question, it was her turn, right? Of course, being the host and all, she's got to do one too. Her question was, kind of a benign question. It was just basically, hey, what was your favorite type of jewelry? And she just, has a moment where she says, like, it wasn't my favorite type of jewelry in the beginning, but it was a special one because it was my first engagement ring or my first wedding ring. So not my favorite piece, but it's very special to me, and that's the one I would give. So then, of course, this leads into Alexis being asked, because one of the things that was kind of put out there is that Alexis got this big, beautiful ring, and it was from John. So it kind of just led into that, right? So I believe it was Gina who asked the question about, oh, what's the deal with that big old ring that you got there? And so Alexis is very happy to share that the ring does come from John, that, it's a really nice ring. And I think it's diamond banded and just got a lot going on. It's big. And she just really wanted an opportunity to talk about it. She said that she received the ring from him. And of course, they had this absolute unnecessary conversation about the fact that it was a promise or a promised ring. The difference was that it was either promise or promised past tense with the D on the end, right? E-D-D on the end. And of course, everybody's trying to figure out, well, what does that mean? That means you're promised to him. She's like, well, no, I said promise. I didn't say promise. I mean, it could be not a promise to to God. And of course, I guess because she posted this on Instagram and had that hashtag on there. So this became this real silly conversation about that. Well, then we clip to Katie's confessional where she's talking about it. There's absolutely no difference between promise or promise other than there's a D on the end. It's just, oh, wait a minute. Maybe that's what Alexis is now getting. And, because of course, Alexis definitely wanted to make it be known in her coy, not so coy, direct, not so direct kind of way, that she and, what's his name? It's just, they're just getting it on all the time, which that doesn't seem very believable considering the age and, from the stamina point that Shannon remembers. And I'm not quite sure where that is. We'll probably get into it, but that conversation didn't take place now. I think it takes up a little later on in the episode. Also at this point, Gina awkwardly laughs about that, but also says, asks the question about, do you think that you're going to marry him? Because that's a pretty big gift to get after just 2 months of being together. And she says, yeah, I can see us getting married in the future. And of course, the camera being as shady as they want to be, corpse to Shannon, and her face is, very stoic at this point. But I think it was about all she could take. So she, of course, Gina's kind of surprised that she says, yeah, we're going to get married. And she's like, you think you're going to marry this guy? You really do think that's going to happen? She says, well, not going to happen right now, but yeah, I can see this happening. So, okay, there's that. So that was when Shannon said, okay, that's it. I need a break. So she decides to get up and go to the restroom. And of course, Tamara decides to run after her because she's getting up. And, Tamara does go up to her and basically just asks her in the hallway, hey, are you okay? And she's like, no, I'm not. But and hey, by the way, you think I'm talking about you behind your back. So, and Tamara says, you are. She goes, no, I'm not. I mean, explain to me why you think that's happening. And she's like, yeah, it is happening. And I heard that you said, I'm selfish. I'm all these different things. And this kind of goes back to the situation, or that she had a big ego as well. And this goes back to the situation that, had the Tres Amigas. And that was something that was mentioned in the last episode. Well, Tamara decided to quit doing that. So there is that. And so all Heather said, or excuse me, all Shannon said was that, look, I was making note about the fact that, everything seemed to be, kind of revolve around you and your schedule and what you need to do. And yeah, I might have said that you may have had a bit of an ego, but that was about as far as it was. It wasn't like this, bite back and behind your back kind of thing. This was really in response to the fact that you're kind of leaving us hanging, or you're doing too much directing the situation. And it's all three of us that are involved in this. But Tamara wasn't really trying to hear it. She basically says, look, I'm just kind of done with the situation at this point. You're not a good person. And I thought that was a little hurtful and quite a pile-on. I mean, between Alexis and now Tamara, I don't know. I just feel like Shannon, she took it like a champ, and it was a lot. It was a lot. So finally, this fated party is now coming to an end because, at this point, in the hallway as well, Shannon did want to want to apologize. So let's have a conversation. Let's talk about this. With Tamara, she said, want to meet up or, maybe get a coffee or something like that. Tamara's like, no, I don't want to meet up. So what else do you want to do then? I mean, because I'm not going to sit there and argue with you in the hallway. Right. So at this point, they part ways in that moment to go back to the table. The party, like I said, is coming to a close. Heather thanks everyone for coming and hopes that everyone has a great 2024 and wishes everyone a happiest for all. And yeah, I know she was probably happy that situation was over, but it was a fun party, but there was so much going on. So now we cluster over to the next scene where we have Gina on a different day in her house that she was trying to sell, a house that she was selling. So she had a couple that came, they kind of had a little bit of interaction. Gina's doing her salesman thing. She feels that this is really her calling. She really enjoys doing it. Unfortunately, the couple doesn't decide to buy that home, but nevertheless, it was a nice opportunity to see Gina at work. At the same time that this is happening, we go into seeing Jen, Katie, and Shannon getting together, and they're going out getting a little bit of exercise. Of course, Katie's like, I don't do exercise unless you call, doing my husband doing exercise. So they're going up the stairs. There's a bit of commentary about that, because I think Katie's like probably the youngest or one of the youngest, and Shannon's like, come on, get up there, because Shannon's getting her workout on and doing a good job with that. So, they're bonding, right? They're having some bonding time, and it's actually kind of nice. And it gives Katie an opportunity to really speak to Jen and Shannon both and just get to know them on a real cool level, because, the New Year, New Me brunch was a bit much. So, of course, one of the things also that Gina shares, because now we're cross feeding scenes, Gina back at the house that she's trying to sell, she's letting us know again that this is a really huge deal. This job is a huge deal to her. This career is a new deal for her. She's very passionate about it. She says, look, this is the way that I provide for my children, keeping a roof over their head. So it's really, really important. And it also leads more into more conversation about the situation with her and Jen. Now, Jen and Kate and Shannon, now back to them with their exercising and all that good stuff. One thing that I want to say is Jen that mentions about, seeing John and pictures with Alexis and, how he seems to smile so much. And Shannon goes to let us know, well, actually he had some issues with his teeth. And so he didn't want to smile much. So now that his teeth are fixed, now he's smiling all the time. So, leave it to Shannon to try to keep it on the real. So yeah, that was kind of funny. And, she's so innocent in the way she says it. So that's why she says that's why that's happening. And, Jen says, well, that could be true, but I think that might also be that he seems a little bit happy. Now, she says this in her confessional, not to Shannon, to her face, but that she also could see that she's probably just a little happy about the situation, or that they're happy together. They seem happy together. So yeah, conversation then turns to Katie. She shares that her and her husband have been married for, they met playing golf, they play golf, both of them. They're in the golfing business, actually. And she does just celebrated 7 years of marriage with him in October. So October 2023. She says that her husband was a travel reporter along with herself, and that she was one for one particular channel, and he was also a reporter for a different network, and that's how they kind of combine. Now, she does share, Katie does in her confessional, that she wanted to actually be a weather girl, but she was a little she wanted to be that since she was a little girl, but she thought that it was going to be a scary job. So she went into sports journalism, and that's what both her and her husband do. And now they're in the own golfing situation. Now, she doesn't want to play, but her husband wants to give her lessons. But she says that that's probably going to end in divorce if he tries to teach her how to play golf. So she's not interested. She'll report on it, but she's not interested in playing it, right? Katie also shares that she is thankful that she got a chance to meet up with Shannon because of, again, what had happened at the party, that it was so much going on there, and she just wanted an opportunity. And Shannon was really cool, I have to say, but she really wanted to have that opportunity to talk with her. Katie also shares that how she came about to the group and how she met Gina, and that was basically through Sutton. We kind of got into that, I want to say, the last episode as well. Basically, Sutton had a Christmas party. We see a picture of her, Sutton, and Garcelle Bouvier at the same party. That's how they met up. And of course, Sutton's being as cool as she is, she's also cool friends with Gina, and offered up, hey, you want to touch base with Gina about getting a place to stay. So that's how that all came into play. And Gina absolutely loves Katie. They really get along, and that's really nice to see. And also what I like is that Gina and Emily and Katie get along, right? Because remember, there was a little bit of issue back in the day with Gina and Emily, just people feeling left out in their little twosome friendship. So the fact that they all three can hang out together and there doesn't seem to be any issue, and Emily loves Katie as well, is a good thing. All right, so let's go and keep on going. Now, we get to okay, so we kind of move into, from that conversation, Shannon is asked how Heather and her were doing, right? How they kind of met, because, it was Heather's party. And there was a little bit of conversation had where Katie had shared that basically she had never really had much of a conversation with Heather, but that she met Heather, or they saw each other. Heather looked at her, kind of looked her up and down, and she did not really say much. And so, she doesn't have a really great feel for Heather at this point. So we'll hopefully see if time goes on where that might change. Let's see. She knows what she doesn't do anything. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so they also bring up the conversation about, when she talks about Heather, she's also kind of bringing it back to Shannon, because the question that Jen has for Shannon is, how are you and Heather doing? Because if you recall from last season's reunion, there was obviously an issue between the two. There was a bit of a rift with them. And, she says, look, I really don't know how we're doing at this point, but she's really upset about the conversation and things that were said from last season. So then we get a flashback to the reunion. And basically the issue is that it appeared that Heather was being messy and that Tamra, according to Shannon, had told her that there was things being said about behind her back, but yet she didn't want to say things out into the full force of the show because she wanted to keep it in the vault. But I personally thought that what was meant was that, whatever she had, that she could share some things, and this was about Shannon's relationship with John, that she was keeping it in the vault, meaning that she could trust her. That's how I took it. That, there was no issues there. She wasn't going to out her. There was not going to be anything that she was going to tell her business. But Shannon didn't take it that way. Shannon took it like, no, you're trying to say things and talk behind my back. And I think Tamra made it to be a little bit more messier than what it really was. So also at the same time, we're flipping back to a conversation that Gina has in the house where she calls Emily, and they're talking, and they're going to talk some more about the situation with the house for Jen, because now at this point, we get, after Shannon explains about the Heather situation, we get them kind of going back to Jen saying to Katie and Shannon in that moment, I got to find out what's going on with Gina, by the way, too, because I don't know what's going on there. I know something about there's an issue with the house thing, so we're setting up some time to talk because we haven't got a chance to do that. Then we go back to the crossfeed of the scene with Gina and Emily, and basically she's just talking about it, letting us know that what ends up happening is that the realtor that was of the home that Gina was renting, that person had an opportunity to provide a cashback buyer, right? Or cash buyer, something like that, to bring to a home that Gina was going to, try to sell to. But the realtor is not speaking to or not dealing with Gina at this point anymore. Okay. Basically cut off that opportunity for her. So the dollar amount that she's looking at was $50,000. So that's why you're hearing the $50,000 throughout, the first couple episodes, as far as what she felt she owes her, that she is out that kind of money. And also it's a reputational thing, right? That this lady probably feels, I can't trust her. So it's kind of burn me once, that's it. We're not going down that, because burn me twice, and now this is on me, right? So the house this other separate house, not the one that she was in at that point, but a house previous that she needed a cash buyer for, this lady could have given her one. And because of the situation that took place, she probably felt burnt, but didn't even talk to Gina about it, I don't think. And so at this point, she cut that, severed that deal did not go through. So she lost, Gina lost that deal. And so she really holds Jen responsible for that, right? So yeah, at this point, they're just kind of going over that. They also discuss more about, where Jen is at, because Gina says, I don't even know where she's living now. And they said, well, apparently I think she moved in with Ryan. And of course, that's what Jen says, that, yeah, she's moved in with Ryan. And, they're kind of just going through the steps with that, the paces with that. Things seem to be going pretty well, all things considered. The kids are kind of, getting into the groove of things there, and everybody seems to be pretty happy. Also, Katie, at this point, when it crossfeed back over to Katie and Shannon and Gina, or Jen, sorry. She asked, hey, what does Ryan do anyway? She says, I really don't know. I kind of say he kind of just plays around, but he used to be in the mortgage situation back in the day, and now he's into real estate. So he's been doing that for quite some time. So he was in the mortgage business at one point, probably made a lot of money, and now he's in the real estate, bigger contracts, bigger things going on, but he doesn't have a real office. It doesn't seem to be, he's just living the life. So he's making money, he's doing well as far as she knows at this time. So that's more of the conversation that's had. So we get to know about that a little bit. And of course, that's kind of, I think, a prelude to some things that are going to happen throughout the season. But then going back to Gina and Emily's conversation and kind of wrapping that up, basically she's just like, okay, well, she would be sympathetic to the plight of the situation, but she just feels really burned by it. And at the end of the day, she needs to get to the bottom of it. And that's what they're going to do. So then we do go to Katie's house, which is actually kind of nice. We get to, see a little bit about her family scenario. So basically, Katie shares with us that, and the family seems to get along really well, right? So she has a 6-year-old with her husband. She has been married before, and she has 3 other kids from that marriage. So in total, she has 4 children. Now, her 17-year-old son, he's apparently in San Diego finishing school there. And her 15-year-old, I believe, is in Georgia, because that's where Katie is originally from, and living with him full time. Then the 19-year-old daughter lives with her in the house with her current husband, or her husband, right? We'll say current, but it is current because she did have a previous one. And their 6-year-old child, who seems very, very precocious and fun and all of that. So we get to see, a really nice side of the family dynamic. They seem to be very happy. Now, we all know that Katie is of Korean descent, but she was adopted. Both her parents are Caucasian and from Georgia. And, she didn't really have a lot of anything at all culture provided within that adoption. So, she obviously, loves her parents and everything like that, but there's no connection for her with that. But her daughter, on the other hand, has immersed herself in the culture. So she has learned to speak Korean, and they go to restaurants, and, she actually orders for her mom. Katie says, I'm quite embarrassed by the fact that I don't know, and my daughter does, but she's very much gotten herself fully immersed. And I think that's wonderful. I think that's great. I think that everyone should always know exactly where their roots are from, and being connected to that is a beautiful thing. So I am really glad that she did that. Now, Katie also shares that, her daughter basically is estranged from her father. She feels abandoned by her father. So the current husband that she is with, she has a very good relationship and looks at him as her father, and looks at him as, like she was adopted. And Katie says, look, I was adopted, you're adopted, everything's good. So everybody's good to go. We also find out that apparently her daughter's also got a job interview. And so that looks like something that may be promising. There's a little bit of going back and forth, funny conversation about that. But yeah, that's kind of what's going on there. But overall, they seem like they're a very happy family. So I don't think there's much more that they talked about. They talk a little bit about her sister dating, the daughter dating, and the little boy, they ask him what he thinks about it. He's 6 years old. And he's like, I don't want to be in this conversation. So they all seem to be a real fun family all together. And we get to see, and like I said, a little bit of a extra side to Katie, which was really nice to see. So then we are now moving on to Emily, Gina, and Shannon going to football center to kind of learn some new tricks. Some tricks on refreshing themselves for flag football, because Emily wants to actually set up a, kind of a fun day with the girls for them to all play flag football, because Emily actually had a really great time doing flag football with her daughter, and she just wanted to do that, and it gave an opportunity for Emily and Shannon and Gina to get together as well. And I have to say, I am glad they all 3 got together, because they used to have a real fun friendship, and then last year things got really, really crazy, and that really, obviously, we saw that implode a bit, and now they're coming back together. So I really did like to see that. Shannon obviously is very humbled by a lot of the things that her experiences, also because she did some of the same things that she had a lot to say about Gina doing. So yeah, it was nice. It was a very good feeling about that. At this point, they're getting their kind of pointers in, they're practicing and all that, talking about kind of the logistics of putting that together. Once they're done, and they've decided to go and have a quick sit down and just kind of talk. And Shannon really does share about how she feels about the DUI situation. She's extremely embarrassed. She's extremely upset that she put herself in that situation. She feels really bad about the situation and all the things that, we discussed in the last episode and how she feels about that, and she's really apologetic again to Gina. I'm sincerely apologetic to her and telling her, I really am sorry for the things that I said and how I acted at certain points, kind of that holy there and now type of thing. And, the thing that brought up about her kids possibly having CPS called and Gina said, that's not what happened. That's not how it went down. And, it just got really out of control. And so she just, again, wanted to apologize because she feels so bad about that. And, hey, sometimes people have to learn the hard way, I guess. Just luckily that no one got hurt, right? Or unalived for that matter. But Gina, says, look, one thing I have to say is I'm going to accept your apology because you are trying to take accountability for that. And I appreciate that. And I know you're going to do good because you are taking accountability. This is what she's saying to Shannon. And I know that you're going to be okay and everything's going to work out the way it's supposed to because you are trying to, get in front of it, stay in front of it, be transparent about it. And you're not trying to hide from it. You're not trying to make this a situation that you didn't do anything. You're trying to be there and just take full accountability for your actions. And I so appreciate that. So, that's what Shannon is really appreciative of that. And Emily's like, hey, that was a really heartfelt thing. That was really cool for you to say, Shannon. It really was like, we're seeing the realism of Shannon and we all knew it was there. It just took a moment to get it out. But we're really happy that she did do that. Now the conversation does turn to them speaking about Alexis because, of course, when Emily's sharing about the logistics of this flag football event, Shannon wants to know who's all being invited. She asks, hey, is Alexis going to be there? She says, yes, Alexis is going to be there. And of course, she did say, though, I really don't know about Alexis, though, in the sense that I don't like how she dealt with you at that party. I don't think that was cool what went down. And Gina says, look, I'm not feeling her at all because we get a flashback of a scene that we did not know that existed in which Alexis was asked by Gina, and I don't understand how all these women being Shannon and Gina, maybe anybody, or Shannon and Alexis, maybe anybody else that's been associated with John Jansen, how they're doing all this, fighting over and trying to protect this guy and, basically, just going at each other's throat over this dude, and, Alexis corpse back at her really nastily. Well, don't you think that maybe that's because he deserves that? So I'm like, okay, yeah, because Alexis is quite, his bulldog, right? His protector. And it's just kind of crazy. But Gina was not having any of that. Gina did not appreciate that. She didn't like the way that came off. And so she's, keeping, Alexis at bay at this point. So we'll see how things encounter. And plus, too, there's also a flashback moment we get, right? Because apparently when Shannon was talking to John about Gina asking a lot of questions last season about what was going on in their relationship, and John did not like that. And John was cussing up a storm about Gina. And so Gina knew about that. And Gina brings that up to Shannon. And Shannon quickly says, oh yeah, he was hangry. And Gina says, well, I didn't know I needed to bring a snack pack for a grown man, in order for him to keep his cool. But here we are, right? But hey, look, it's Alexis' problem now, right? Shannon ain't got nothing to do with that. So it is what it is. But, it also is funny because Gina then also talks, and I think it's in her confessional, she says he's like a little bit of a gremlin if you don't feed him at night. And by a certain time, he turns like, crazy. And she basically says, hey, look, Alexis, you better make sure you have that dinner on the table every night or else, right? So it was pretty funny. But yeah, that's kind of how it was at that point. Then we move on to Tamara and Eddie. And Tamara and Eddie, I thought it was really cool. They motorcycle ride together and they just have a really great relationship, right? I'm really happy for Tamara and her relationship with Eddie. They just seem like they get along so well. The situation with the previous marriage was so heavy. So this is such a nice situation for them. But, they sit down after, they're riding on their motorcycles, go to a nice little cafe or a little hangout there, get themselves a burger and, something, casual to eat, have a sit down and start talking. Tamara lets us know that basically what's going on with the situation since Cut Fitness actually closed, that Eddie's spending a lot of time at Big Bear. They got a house at Big Bear. So apparently at this particular moment, Shannon's granddaughter, 9-year-old, I think her name is Ava, to Ryan, which is her son. There's a lot of Ryans in this show. Ryan, her son, and they're spending that time at their cabin, at her cabin. So she, FaceTimes her. She's, really cute, family moment. Then her and Eddie get back to conversating about what they want to do is regards to how they're going to kind of, I guess, navigate the situation, because Tamara lets us know that, look, Eddie would love to spend full time at Big Bear, but I'm a city girl, so I like to do half and half. So we'll see how that kind of unfolds as time goes. But beyond that, I'm not really sure all of what Eddie does. I know that she had a CBD thing, I believe, and maybe some other businesses, but that wasn't really spoken about. So maybe as the season goes on, we'll hear more about that. But Eddie, we also know a few seasons ago was dealing with some health issues, and so it looks like he's doing okay. I hope he is. So I'm glad about that. Also, she does talk about a couple of things, and one of the main topics is Shannon, because it's quite clear that Tamara's heard about the relationship and the demise of the relationship, or at least the pause of the relationship at this point. And Eddie's kind of like, hey, look, this is a toxic friendship, so it is what it is. But Tamara says, what I'm so angry about is I don't think Shannon's really gotten any help, right? Because with the DUI situation, she feels like Shannon still drinks. She doesn't stop drinking, right? Because she feels she might have a drinking problem, right? Shannon does not feel like she has a drinking problem. She just feels like she was just basically using alcohol in times of stress and comfort, but that overall she feels she's got a bit of a handle on it. She did go get some help, and so she feels she's okay to do whatever she needs to do. So we'll see how that goes. But Tamara does not feel that way. But because she, there wasn't mention about her drinking out of a flask and something like that. I don't know if that was before or after the accident, but nevertheless, it's an issue. And he says, look, I understand that you're upset about this, but this really isn't your problem. So I just need you to kind of not take so much this into you, right? Let's not let it change you so much. So, at the end of the day, that's kind of where they leave that conversation. I don't think there was much else that they talked about. Oh, no, they did talk about Jen. They talked about Jen and Ryan. So that gets brought up about the eviction situation. And, basically, Tamara letting us know, hey, look, when I had my divorce with Simon, I had to get in record time, get myself together right away and get things going with the situation so I can get things working for me and my family, get on my feet and do what I need to do. I wasn't depending on anything from anybody else. I needed to get myself together. And that's what it worked out for. Jen has a yoga studio. Jen only gets about $50, I think, a class per person. And, it's not doing so well at this point. She's not making enough money, in other words. There's different things that were mentioned that they could be doing. Social media was an issue. I don't know if they've gotten something worked out when it comes to that and getting whatever advertisement out about their yoga studio, because I would imagine there's a lot of competition for gyms and fitness places and all that kind of stuff in that area. So the fact that she's able to have that is a good thing. And so they just need to work at doing what they need to do, because neither her or her partners are taking salaries at this point. So it's been a bit of a strain. And of course, everybody feels, well, you just need to get a job because this isn't working out. Of course, what's her name? Tamara. She's, definitely connected to the fact because they had their fitness set and Cut Fitness set was open for a while, but with the whole world coming to an end at that time situation, that's what ended up being a problem for Cut Fitness, and it just didn't survive it. It just didn't survive. So, she has other things going on, and they were able to seamlessly somewhat get out of that situation and continue to keep moving on and, keep having life and being financially set and all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, she's really concerned about Jen. Jen has like 4 or 5 kids. So, there's that. And then you got this divorce, and, it's just a lot going on. And she just wants her to be okay. She doesn't want her to hit rock bottom like she seems like that's happening right now. Now, of course, Eddie says, which I thought was really nice. He says, look, Jen, she actually is a hard worker. She does work hard. It's not like she's lazy and not doing anything. She does work hard. It's just that, he feels that her personal life and who more or less she's associated with, and this goes back to Ryan, her boyfriend, that's more or less probably the problem. It's an influence of a problem. And, hey, look, he said you hang around with lies, you kind of live in that life, right? So apparently that situation is something that's still a brewing, because we knew there was some issues last season with the two couples, and it's not so good apparently for Eddie to say that, but he is on Jen's side, I'll say that. So they kind of wrap up that conversation, and then we move to Jen and Ryan at this point, and we get to see Jen and Ryan really doing okay. The kids, and like I said, have moved in. They're getting themselves situated. Of course, she says everybody's trying to be on their P's and Q's because they're living in a house that doesn't belong to them. She does give us some insight through a flashback for the week prior that she's talked to her parents, which is actually nice to see that. And she's wanted to know if they can come and see them because, you know, the kids would really, really love to just have them there. They're like home to them. And so, of course, the parents are like, absolutely, we will be there. And which is really good because last season, it kind of felt like the parents were upset with Jen that she left her husband and that she was estranged by them. And it didn't seem like it was a really good relationship. So things have obviously changed, or maybe Jen was a little bit more emotional and it didn't come out the way that we would have thought that it would to actually match up to what it seems like now. They seem very happy and loving and caring, and at this point anyways, right? They obviously had a lot of discussions. So then we get back into the real time where the parents come over. And, you know, they're really, really just absolutely adore Ryan. They are so thankful for him, you know, basically stepping up, you know, being here for her and her 4 or 5 kids. I can't remember if it's 4 or 5, but 4 or 5 kids. And, you know, just being there and being available to and opening his doors to his home, which he had been living in 6 years and hadn't used the dishwasher. So that was quite a funny moment. But they like him. They like him a lot. And everything seems to be going okay for the most part, you know, but Jen does have a moment where she's basically just so appreciative of her parents, and she lets her father know and her mother and father know at the same time, but really this is directed mostly to her father because he's the one that's kind of bailing her out of the situations. He's the one that's getting her money and getting her help throughout the situation. She's like, you know, I'm 46 years old, and, you know, I've been talking about, me and Ryan have both been talking about the situation that I should not be still asking you for money. I should be able to take care of myself. I should be able to stand on my 2 feet and be there for me and my kids. And, you know, she said, you know, Dad, you really saved me. And she's very tearful about it. You know, this is a lot weighing on her, right? And so her father's like, oh, you talking about me? Oh, yeah, of course. We are here for you. We love you. Of course, we will do whatever we need to do. And, you know, I thought it was really funny because her mom, and this might be a bit of a, I don't know, a mindset, obviously, where she says, well, you know, it was so great. You then found Ryan. And she's like, Mom, it's not about me finding Ryan, right? Because we get to find out a little bit later on down the line just what kind of pampered life Jen really had. And so her mother's thought was, oh, good, you got yourself a man that could take care of you. So yeah, that's good. And she's like, no, Mom, I'm not talking about that. We're not focusing on that. Yes, that's what I did, but that's not what we're focusing on. I need to get my situation together because it's not really Ryan's or her parents' responsibility to do that. So, you know, it's just a situation that hopefully they will get things together, and we're hoping to see some open skies or clearer skies, if you will, for Jen as time goes on, because this is really eating at her, to say the least. It really is. And yeah, she's just really thankful though for what they are doing for her. And so with that, then move on to Heather and Shannon. And this was really nice because this was a long overdue conversation. So let's go ahead and whip through this real quick. Heather and Shannon apparently have decided to go ahead and have a meetup to discuss a lot of the issues from last season, meaning those things that Tamara had said that, you know, Heather was saying things behind her back and she wanted to get to the bottom of that. So they get to the restaurant. The restaurant has really cool lanterns, which are really fire lanterns. And of course, it's kind of chilly at this point. And so Heather's like, could you go ahead and do me a favor and pull those fire lamps, if you will, as close as you can to me. And then there's a little bit of a funny moment because a few seasons ago, there was a situation that happened where Shannon got a little too close and her extensions caught on fire. It was hilarious. But so there was a funny moment, kind of break the ice moment between Heather and Shannon, because, you know, Heather really does like Shannon. Shannon really does like Heather. They just have their bumps in the road, right? But, you know, one thing that Shannon or Heather says that in her confessionals is how much she appreciates, you know, having that friendship with Shannon. She has a good time with Shannon. So she really wants to get to a place where they can be okay, and really a place where Shannon can trust Heather. So at this point, you know, they dive right on into the situation as far as what is really going on. Heather wants to get right in there and basically says, you know, what is it and why do you not feel like I'm telling you the truth? What exactly is the problem that you have with me? And then of course, Shannon corpse about the fact that, we talk about what you know and all the stuff you have, this information about me in the vault, and you're talking about me. And I just was really upset about that. I didn't understand what that meant and all of that. And of course, Heather says what I felt and what I think most people felt was that the vault meant that, look, yeah, I may know some things and I've heard some things and I feel some things about the situation with Shannon and John. And there was things that were not good going on between them, but I am trustworthy. It's all in the vault. I would never share that. These are things that you said to me in confidence. That's all I meant. And so Shannon was like, well, okay. And I appreciate you saying that, because how it was presented to me is that you were talking about on my back. And that's, Tamara's the one that was telling me this. And she's like, that's not what was going on. So this is what it is. And so, his, okay. Shannon's like, okay, like waving the white flag, right? Okay. Well, the surrender flag, right? So she says, hey, look, I'm going to apologize. And Heather says, no, I don't want an apology. I don't want an apology. I want to know that you can trust me. And so, Shannon's basically like, I want to, and I'm going to try to. And of course, we clip back to the confessional for Shannon, where she does say, I really do want to have that moment with her. And I want to be able to feel like I'm okay and that I can trust the things that she says. And it's just going to take some time, but she's willing to do that. And they seem to have a lovely, rest of the evening dinner. It looks like they're going to work on one day at a time and work towards moving forward in their relationship and their friendship. So I'm really happy about that. And that kind of ends that scene with the ladies there. Then we move over to deck on Laguna Beach. It's a next day probably type of thing, where we have Emily, Gina, and Katie, and they're getting together. And of course, that's where Emily says, basically, I love Katie too, that we all get along. It's really fun. And yeah, they just have a good time. And so part of their conversation is that Katie shares that, oh, hey, yeah, I met up with Jen and Shannon, and I got a chance to, get to know them and talk with them and everything. And of course, what was brought up was the situation with the eviction. And of course, here we go. Gina's rearing to go, right? Because she wants to know what was said. And she said, we're just talking about discussing, the ins and outs. And she really didn't know what the issue was, but she just said that you guys were going to meet up. And of course, Gina was really on one at this point. She just says, look, yeah, we've got some issues here, and I definitely want to get these things ironed out, but at the end of the day, if she comes for me in my business, it's going to be a problem. And that's basically what that part of the episode contains. Of course, the ladies look a little shocked because Gina is like really ready to go because, her reputation's on the line. So that kind of ends that in short order. So now we move on to the Pierre Resistance, right? The end of the episode, and where we are going down to what I like to call the sit down here as well. And this is where Gina and Jen meet up to discuss the whole situation about what is going on, what the problem is, and the eviction as a whole. So Jen actually is running, I guess, a little late, but Gina gets there first. She's able to get her coffee and her, croissant or whatever, and she's sitting there, she's waiting, and Jen does pop in. Jen gives her, greets her, and basically says, I'm going to get me a coffee. Is that cool? I see you got a coffee. She's like, yeah, sure, get a coffee. And then she goes and gets, to the counter to get her coffee and maybe something to eat on herself, definitely her coffee. But at the same time, we court back into, Gina, Jen, Emily, all these ladies, I tell you. And she's just like really incensed with the fact of how Jen looks. She's like, how she come in here? I could tell she got glam. She got really nice clothes on. At least look like you're struggling, when you come down here and meet me about this situation. So she's already just upset and ready to go about that. When Jen comes back to the table, the small talk really is just at a minimum. She just really wants to go right on in, and she basically starts to do that. So, she basically just starts talking about the situation. My thing is getting stuck here, so bear with me for a second. She starts talking about, the eviction, what was going on about that, because basically she's like looking at her and saying, hey, what's going on with you? What's going on? And, Jen's like, well, a lot's going on. She goes, well, yeah. So why don't you talk to me about it? And, so it goes back fast and furious. But basically, she's like, well, I hear that you're upset about the situation with the house. And I just want to know, did you really think that I got you into this situation or got into this house knowing that I wouldn't be able to pay for it? Did you really think that that was something I was going to do? Is that the kind of thing I would do? And, Gina says, look, you signed a contract. And at the end of the day, when you sign that contract, you need to uphold the terms in that contract. And that was to pay your rent. And, when I'm seeing you coming here, you're looking like, you're in glam and everything. And I'm trying to understand how you getting this basically and not being able to pay your rent. You're making me look bad. It's bad business. And this is, a situation that I am still suffering from, my reputation for one, and two, because the bottom line is I had a deal that I was going to try to have with the actual realtor that was associated with this particular situation with you. And now I can't get them on the phone, right? At this point, Gina is laying into her. She's talking about, at the end of the day, you're supposed to, you're an adult. You need to take care of your bills. You need to pay your bills. That's what you're supposed to be doing. That's your responsibility. No one else's responsibility. She's like, at this time, Jen really can't get much of a word in, right? She's just pelting her with what you should be doing and what you should be paying for and how you should be acting. And this is ridiculous. And oh my gosh. And then we're warping back and forth to confessionals. And, Gina's saying calling her all kinds of stupid and just ridiculous. And Jen is just looking at her like, what the heck? Jen barely got her coffee. So she's like, I don't understand why you are doing the things that you're doing, and why aren't you basically putting certain things in in perspective and priority. And she's like, I'm trying to, because I didn't think about the situation that you're saying about your deals. So of course you didn't think about it. I don't think you think much about these things. I think you just got to wake up and just live life, right? Of course, Jen is offended now. And she's really soft-spoken because, it's so funny. Jen has got the yoga studio, right? So she's always in Zen mode. She's just so offended by what was going on, but she's trying to keep her cool at the same time. But she tells Jen, look, you need to wake up. You need to be paying your bills. You need not to worry about your husband and what he can do and what he can't do for you. You need to take care of your kids. That's what you need to do. And she's like, look, I am in the middle of a divorce. I did not know that he was not going to pay his amount of rent. I didn't know that was going to happen. So I had to, do what I needed to do. And she's like, well, that's basically not her problem. You are screwing me. And so you need to get this together. And she's like, get yourself a job. What's the problem? You're over here doing glam. Why aren't you at the gym? She was just going in. And Jen was just like, oh my gosh, like what the heck did I walk myself into? So at this point, it's just out of control at this, Gina is just seeing red. She ain't got nothing for Jen at this point. At the end of the day, you screwed me. You've embarrassed me. You have put my reputation online. This is my career. I am passionate about this. You're taking food out of my children's mouth. And, at this point, as I'm watching this scene though, I'm saying to myself, I get that Gina is upset. I understand that Gina is upset, right? You don't want to be burned by someone that you're helping. But I do go back to the fact that there's got to be some responsibility and accountability taken by Gina. Now that might be an unpopular opinion, but that is how I feel about it. I would love to know your thoughts in the comment section about this. I do see, of course, that Gina has every right to be upset because she trusted Jen. And that's what this really boils down to, right? But at the same time, you've got to take responsibility for the fact that you actually didn't do the due diligence that you were supposed to do. That's part of the contract. I can see doing little things here and there to help her out, but to not do a credit check, that's like the number one thing, right? In my eyes anyways. So if you don't even have the basis of the foundation to see if she could be in there, at this point, the only people who are going to be looking at is you. And I get the whole, hey, I help my friends out. But, if this job and this career is so important to you, I think you might want to really take heed to doing favors in a different way for different people at different times in your career. You're getting new. You're starting new. At this point, nobody's getting a pass on anything because you've got a reputation to build. So although I understand that Gina is upset, I think she's probably also really angry about her, decision herself. And I also think there's other things going on as well. And it's just that Jen is getting the unleashing of this situation. And at the end of the day, she's telling Jen, you don't know what you're doing basically. And she's like, you don't think I know what I'm doing? She goes, no, you don't know what you're doing. She goes, you don't know the half of what I'm doing. You don't know the half of what I'm going through and what this is doing to my situation. But Gina was not trying to hear it at all. At this point, she's trying to berate her some more. Jen is trying to kind of, come to her own aid at this point and try to speak a little bit about this. And Gina just gets upset. She's like, look, I'm not going to do this with you. Basically at the end of the day, all she wants to hear is say that she was wrong, she was sorry, and this, that, and the other. She don't hear nothing about the reasons and what's going on, right? Just all she wants to hear that you screwed me and you need to own up to that. And that's what that is. So she basically stomps out, and Jen is like bewildered, like, I don't know what to do here. I think she's even looking at the producers, and we're breaking fourth walls and stuff about what the heck I'm supposed to do. Like, I can't even have a conversation with this shit. So at this point, Gina is done. She leaves. She says, I'm not doing this. She opens up the door. We're hearing it between the moment of the arguing and Jen, which I think really is Gina doing the arguing, and then Gina, her confessional, and she's basically saying, look, I don't understand why you're doing all this stuff. Oh, she did say something funny, which Jen is funny. When she was talking about the glam, she's like, why is you doing glam, but you need to pay your bills? And Jen, in her confessional, says, look, Gina, oh my God, it's so funny. Just because my life is falling apart does not mean my hair needs to, just like yours did. And then we get a picture of Gina a few seasons back about her hair. And, it was a lot of flack that Gina got about her hairstyles a few seasons ago when she was going through it. And so it's kind of funny because I was like, Gina's like, look, I'm going to 1-2 punch you in a way that really is going to hurt, because it goes back to that. And it was really kind of funny. And really, she didn't know where else to go. Because in other words, I may be, everything's just burning up around me, but I'm going to be good and looking good at it. So yeah, it was so funny. And, but of course, I just always feel like Jen's business is completely out for the whole entire world to see. How embarrassing that must be for her, how humiliating that must be for her. But she's taking it in stride. So, here we are. And I kind of feel like we want to root for Jen. We want her to get it together. We want her to root for her because she's a nice person, and hopefully she will be able to do that. But she's definitely entitled in a lot of ways, and we get to learn more about that in the next episode. So I'll talk about that some more then. But yeah, so at this point, Gina's done. She marches out. She's, saying all kinds of stuff, calls her stupid, says you can do whatever you need to do, but you don't screw me. And she gets in the car, and then the episode is done. So that basically does the wrap up for that. I mean, it was a lot going on. I felt so bad for Jen. I really did. I did. I thought Gina just went so hard. Gina went straight New York, and she did not let up for one iota. And so, yeah, that's where we left off. It was quite riveting TV, a wonderful episode for lots going on, but my goodness, could you just, give a moment, right? Could you just give a moment? So at the end of that, we just kind of, take a breath, and we look at the fact that we've got one more episode to recap and review. Well, two more, because I got to do 3 and 4 with you, right? So I will probably be coming on sometime in the early part of tomorrow to do episode 3. So if you are watching the show, of course, and you want to continue to keep up with the recap with me, and please leave me your thoughts of what's going on and what you think of the episodes as well. Let's communicate about that. Let's conversate about that. I would love to know your thoughts. So definitely leave those down below. And I will look to try to get 3 and 4 out tomorrow, because tomorrow evening, of course, is when the next episode is going to come out. So I'm going to work to get that to you. I'm also putting some other stories aside to get these recap and reviews out to you too. So yeah, but I am so appreciative of you being here. I thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed. And if you are new here, of course, make sure you subscribe, be part of the family. It's free. And I would love to have you. Would love to have you, recap, review, worthy news, do just stories and conversation. I love to, be in conversation with you guys about these types of things and this crazy world we live in. But yeah, I'm quite enjoying Real Housewives of Orange County at the moment, and I think that it's not showing any signs of letting up, so I'm here for it. And I guess we'll just have to see. Ratings or however it's going, be damned. I don't know what the numbers are. I don't even care. I'm just watching for the stories until we don't have them anymore. But with that being said, again, I'm so glad that you took some time to spend with me for this recap and review. Definitely leave your respectable thoughts and comments down below about the episode, what you thought about it, just everything about what you thought about it. Do you think that Gina is going too hard on Jen? Do you think she needs to let up some? Let me know what you feel about that. I wonder if that $50,000 deal would have been a done deal. I mean, I know that it was in her grasp, but that doesn't mean that it would have worked out. But hey, maybe that's just splitting hairs at this point. Do you think that something's brewing between Katie and Heather? That there's a storyline that's about to open up there, with the situation with Katie feeling a little bit snubbed by Heather from previous times, and kind of like when she went to the party, Heather was really, really in her face, like, oh, hey, kind of thing. I feel like something's brewing there. What do you think about Shannon? I have to say she's MVP right now at this point. She's just handling herself so well with all of the criticism, that she could be getting, and rightfully so on a lot of fronts, because Shannon has been quite a terror sometimes, but she's really dealing with her situation. Do you think Alexis is just coming in a little bit too strong? Are you like me wondering why Alexis is even here? I guess it's because Shannon needs that extra stress. I don't know. I don't know if I see Alexis as a full-time member, though, because I don't see how this is going to work unless they're going to become friends. And I just don't see that happening, because Alexa is not leaving anything open for that. She says one thing, but it doesn't seem like she's really coming in that way. So I don't know about that, but nevertheless, we'll see what happens. And I think that's about it for this one. So go ahead, make sure again that you subscribe, have your notification bell on, so that you will see the next upload. And until next time, be blessed. Bye.